Welcome to the Global Share Your Stories networking event. Sabrina Victoria is a seasoned entrepreneur and TEDx speaker who is the founder and host for Her Nation, a community of women in business. She's a participant in the Share Your Stories platform, and we share a common goal for strategic networking for small business owners. Sabrina joins us from Boca Raton, Florida, to share her thoughts on creating authentic relationships. And it is my pleasure to welcome Sabrina to our quarterly networking event.
You're the best, Trish.
Take it away, my friend.
Yes, girl. So Trish gave me the title of Creating Authentic Relationships, and I'm literally like, girl, that could go in 1,000 different directions. So we're niching down because we have 5 minutes. So I'm doing the first steps to creating authentic relationships in business because I feel like I've done a really good job at that. One of the things that I talk to my clients a lot about is how do we become 3D in a 2D world? So much of our networking and so much of our relationships are now being kind of toned down to this virtual world of doing everything online, when in past, right, pre-COVID, so much of what we were doing was 3D. And when I'm saying that it's hard to create, or harder, or maybe more complicated to create authentic relationships in this 2D world, it's because we have 5 senses, right? And now that we're in this 2D world, we're actually down to only 2, hearing and seeing. That's it. The rest of the 3 are off the table. So how do we create authenticity and relationship building and community building when we only can play with 2 of our senses, what we hear and what we see? So that's what I want to talk about a little bit today. I'm just going to give you a nugget little bit of information as far as some very, very simple things that I do on calls, on networking, in events like this to really help me create authentic relationships to continue to build out my community. So I have been, or was, in door-to-door sales pretty much for the majority of my life, about 2 decades. And when you're going door to door, one of the hardest things is overcoming the door open. People are just automatically pissed. So one of the things that I had to learn how to do is a genuine smile. And this seems obvious, like, got it, Sabrina, smile. But there's actually a genuine smile. And when you're smiling on your networking calls today going forward, if there's anything you learn from today over the next 5 minutes, this is the thing that will change not only your relationships that you're building in your networking, but also the relationships that you're building in real person. And the way that I envision this is, imagine you're at the airport and Bob, who you haven't seen in 20 years, is walking down the terminal and you're curious. You're like, wait a minute, is that Bob? That's Bob. So it comes from a curious point of view, centered, and slowly from the center, your mouth goes from ear to ear and you smile with your eyes. And I do this on every single call. Every single call, when they jump on, immediately I'm like, who is this? And immediately rapport is being built by just the smile. The next thing I do is I always thank them for popping on. I'm sure that you've been stood up before in the world of networking. They have given you their time. Our time is our most valuable thing. A simple, hey, listen, thank you so much for being here with me does wonders. The third thing I do on every single call is I always joke. I always make a laugh. Usually I'm making fun of myself. I joke about how I just choked on my water. I joke that I didn't have my camera on. I joke that I was late, that I have to go pee and I haven't been able to eat yet. Whatever it is, something to allow the person to realize that you're real. You're a real 3D person, even though you are meeting in the 2D world. That is about 20 to 30 seconds. That's the very beginning of your networking call. Once we get through all of that, I match their tone, their volume, and their energy. Now, the reason I do this is because you can see clearly that I have a little bit of energy. I have a little bit of going on. So sometimes I have to bring myself down a little bit in order to match their energy so they don't think I'm a little crazy. So matching their energy, we've all heard about this, match their tone, their volume. We've heard about mirroring. Yes to all of that. But one of the things that I talk about is, yes, you want to mirror, but you always want to bring it back to being your authentic self. So I always ramp up into my authentic self of who I am, but I try not to scare them just right off the bat, which is absolute ridiculousness. So being true to who yourself. Now, if you're a little more of an introvert, I am going to give a caveat here. You got to sometimes bring your energy up. So the way that I kind of visualize this is, we've all been to a concert, our favorite sports game. I don't care how introverted you are. There is a little tuned up version of yourself where you're screaming like a 16-year-old little girl at the Taylor Swift concert. I don't care how introverted you are. When you are at some place like that, that's just your fave, you can turn it up a notch. And that's the energy, that's the notch that I'm talking about as far as helping you go from 2D to 3D. We have to ignite those two senses that we're working with, which is hearing and seeing. That's all you're working with. So you have to just turn it up a little bit in order to overcompensate for the 3 that you're missing. The next thing is to notice something that's in their background. Somebody who was on the screen actually did it for me right off the bat before we even went live here, where she noticed the painting behind them. People purposefully put things in their background, jewelry, clothing, necklaces, to build rapport. Use what they are giving you, be able to connect. You see something in the background that resonates with you, point it out. This is what creates connection. This is what creates community. And this is what creates individuals to really know, like, and trust you and see some commonality. If they're giving it to you, take that and use that. Next is in-screen hand gestures. You've been seeing me do it this entire time. I use my hands all the time. It's really important to make sure that we are talking in front of our face with our hands in a 2D world. Over here, no one can see you. Down here, no one can see you. We have to learn to bring our hands up to our face. I am constantly in my face with my hands, snapping and clapping. I'm going in and out of the camera. I am raising my tone. I am lowering my tone. My eyes are big. My eyes are small. When somebody says something that's exciting, I get close. Like, what, girl, are you serious? When it's a little more important, I'm like, oh my gosh, girl, I am so sorry. And really allowing yourself again to become a real person. And then lastly, which is what we were just talking about actually in our little group session, is stories. My entire platform is built on stories, everything. Trish's is also, that's why we get along so well. But I believe stories is the end all to be all in creating relationships. I have an entire Excel spreadsheet filled with all the stories of my life, big stories, little stories, traumatic stories, fun stories, happy stories, sad stories. And I tell stories during my calls. I tell stories. This helps me become authentic, or allows me to be authentic. It allows the individual to see a vulnerability within me that could ignite something within them that really creates connection. So the moral of the story is smile, use hand gestures, be vulnerable, and don't be afraid to tell stories.
I love your energy. You have such an amazing energy to share with everybody. And I know that the ladies that are on the call today have taken a few notes I loved your reference to the 2D world, because I think that's really important. We forget that sometimes, right? Because we're so used to seeing things in 3D and communicating in 3D. It is a big deal. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Special thanks to Sabrina for sharing your expertise, and we'll see you next time.